Hello, hello, everyone. Good to see everybody, or rather, I should say, good to chat with everybody since I don't get to see you in this format. Let me know in the comments where you're joining us from, and let me know that you can hear me okay. Drop me a yes and wherever you're coming from. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, good afternoon, good morning. Yes, yes, thank you. I got one of you, two of you that follow directions, three of you. There we go. There we go. Hi, everybody. Y'all ready to have some fun today? Let's do it. Y'all don't get me on Zoom where I would normally be pressuring you into getting those cameras on, into chatting with me. But if you have never been in a class with me before, then I got a couple of rules because this is free 99. It doesn't actually cost anything, but there's a payment. And no one told you when you walked in, but we got a price to pay for being here today. And it's this. Number one, I need y'all to be fully engaged. If you're going to be here, if you are going to spend a precious 45 minutes of your one beautiful life with me, let's make it count. Be here fully. Engage, ask questions, ask for clarification, ask for application. Whatever you need today is about you. I am here to ensure that you get out of today what you came here to get. So if there's something you're not getting, if there's something you want to know more about, if there's something you don't understand, say it. That's what I'm here for. Number two, I'm going to ask that y'all stay fully engaged through this whole thing. We will have time at the end for actual Q&A, but if you have questions as we go through all of this, feel free to ask throughout as well, okay? And last but not least, this is the biggest ask. I'm going to ask that y'all make me a promise that if you are, again, going to spend 45 minutes of your precious time with me today, that you are going to take at least one thing from this webinar and go implement it. It's not going to be one of those things you take a bunch of notes, you say, that was so great, and then you stuff it in a drawer and never look at it again. You're going to take at least one thing from this webinar that you're going to go back and implement in your business. If you are willing to make me that promise, drop me a 1 in the chat so that I know I have people here who are not only going to be fully engaged, but are also going to do something with it. And who knows, I usually get pretty generous on these things. And if y'all really show up, maybe I'll pick somebody to do a private coaching session with. Sound good? All right, let's jump in. So you are all here today. Love it. See all your ones. I see all of you. Awesome. You are here today. Somebody's like a 2. I will raise you not 1, but 2. I love that. You're all here today to learn it, to crush it as a solo agent. Now, let me give you all a little bit of background so you know who I am and you know why I know how to do this. I'm the founder of Lever. If you don't know what Lever is a first and only of its kind platform, very exclusively and specifically designed for individual real estate agents. So we provide individual real estate agents comprehensive support for their entire business, wherein we support them in an interconnected platform that supports them in what we call the Big 5: coaching and training, database management, marketing, transaction management, and supplemental lead generation. This was all born from my challenge as a solo agent, probably similar to all of you, wherein I looked up and realized that as solo agents, we only really had 2 options. It was either 1, build all the support that you need out yourself, take on a bunch of overhead, take on a bunch of complexity, do a bunch of jobs that are outside of your natural skill set, or usually outside of your best skill set as a natural born salesperson, which I'm sure many of you are. And if you didn't want to do it that way, then your only other option would be to join a team, to give up your brand, to give up your production under them, and to be on a financial model that most of us aren't super excited about. And if you didn't want to do either of those, if you didn't want to build it all out yourself and you didn't want to join a team, then, well, I guess you just stay where you were and suffer the consequences of doing the same thing over and over and over again and getting the results. And so I looked up in my own business and said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way that we can have all the economies of scale, all the support, all the benefits, all the infrastructure of having a team around us, but we shouldn't have to give up our brand. We shouldn't have to give up our production, and we shouldn't have to be on a 50-50 split. And alternatively, we shouldn't have to build it out ourselves, and we shouldn't have to come up with a bunch of overhead. Is that too much to ask? And the industry said, yeah, you can't do that. So naturally, that's what we went out and did. And that's how Lever was born. So in this platform, we support hundreds of individual agents nationwide. Yes, I said that right. Hundreds of individual agents nationwide in this comprehensive support system, and have had the privilege of getting to support agents in building double, triple, quadruple digit percentage growth year over year in their business. So I often share that at this point in my career, I've quite literally coached thousands of individual real estate agents. So today is really an overview of not only what I've seen work really well, but also what I've seen not work. A lot of times people come into these things and they want a playbook for what to go out and do. But the other thing that we often don't talk about, which is arguably potentially even more important, is what not to do, right? Such that if you see any of these things happening in your business, you need to make sure that you stop doing those things immediately. Okay, y'all ready to get started? Yep. See you. Hello, my California friends. Also a Californian and Angelino. All right, y'all, let's jump in. So first and foremost, you need to have a little bit of a reality check in your business. When I talk to individual agents, one of the most important things that you can address is whether or not staying an individual agent is important to you. Like, one of the top questions that I get asked in real estate in general is, should I stay a solo agent? Should I build a team, or should I join a team? And that's really your options, right? Or should I go into some other job or other capacity inside real estate? To which I will always answer, it depends. It depends on what you want to do. It depends on what you're good at. It depends on what you're willing to do. It depends on what your strengths and weaknesses are. And if you don't walk into your business with real clarity on that, then it makes all the other decisions a lot harder. So first and foremost, you got to ask yourself, number one, who am I, right? And by the way, not in like the esoteric existential sense, which you should probably answer that at some point too, but I mean in the business, who am I? Am I a really great salesperson? Am I more of a systems person? Am I someone who needs a lot of accountability? Who am I? How do I naturally show up? Because the challenge I see for most individual agents who don't gain momentum, who don't gain success, is that they work against themselves. In other words, they're working outside of their natural skill set or outside of what they're good at for too long, and eventually they burn out and they want to quit. By the way, there's only 4 ceilings that individual agents hit, and we're going to address every single one of them and how to solve for every single one of them today. We at Lever support our agents in solving these, but if you're going about solving them on your own, you need to be aware which ceiling you're hitting and what the solution it is, or what solution you need for it. So there's only one of 4 ceilings. The first is the production ceiling. By the way, as we go through these, feel free to just identify like a me. That's my ceiling that I'm in right now in the chat. And I'll make sure I call you guys out to pay attention to which solutions as we go through this based off the ceiling that you're experiencing, right? So first is the production ceiling. And this is the ceiling that you know you're hitting when you've been hitting the same number of transactions year over year over year over year over year. Or when you start the real estate agent roller coaster, which looks a little something like this. I do a bunch of lead generation. I get super busy managing all of the business that I have. I don't lead generate because I'm busy managing all that business. I panic and freak out because I don't have anything in the pipeline after I close it. So I do a bunch of lead generation again. I get super busy managing all that business. I don't lead generate. I close it all. I panic and freak out again, do a bunch of lead generation, and so on and so forth we go. That's the first ceiling, the real estate agent roller coaster. The second ceiling is going to be the time ceiling, right? Usually shortly follows after that one, i.e. I don't have time for anything other than this real estate thing. My life is consumed by real estate. And by the way, not in the good way, not in the way that we're so passionate about it that we think about it all the time. This is in the way that you've got your laptop on your lap on the family vacation. The third ceiling is then going to be the income ceiling. As an individual agent, if you don't come up with solutions, once you run out of time, once you run out of capacity, guess what happens? You run into how much money you can make, right? And then the last ceiling is what I lovingly call the energy ceiling. And this is the ceiling that shows up when you've been hitting all these for so long that you eventually look up and say, I'm totally burned out and I want to quit. And I would offer that most people don't burn out based off hard work. I think that's a fallacy in this world of real estate. By the way, share in the chat which ceiling you think that you're presently hitting right now. I would prefer that y'all self-identify. By the way, you're not alone here. You're on a webinar with a bunch of other individual agents, but call it out so that I can make sure that I tell you as we go through some of these solutions, which one applies to your situation. And when I talk to individual agents, I see you, Deborah. Awesome. Production and income. That's going to be a lot of you for sure. And the roller coaster. Yep. That's also going to be a lot of you. Yep. I see you guys. You're all in good company. You're in the right place. So, when I look up at burnout, a lot of people will say I'm totally burned out. By the way, how many of you are feeling burned out in your business right now? I don't think burnout comes from working hard. Listen, I don't think any single person on this webinar got into real estate thinking it would just be super easy. Or maybe if you did, you figured out it wouldn't be on your very first day and you still stayed. Like, none of us got into this business because we didn't want to work hard. Burnout doesn't come from working hard. Burnout comes from solving the same stupid problems over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that is where individual agents get burned out, that you're solving the same problems in your business so consistently that one day you just look up and say, I'm totally sick of solving the same problems and living the same day, and I don't want to do this anymore, right? So all of these, by the way, need to be found out in this reality check. We need to know what our strengths and weaknesses are. What do I really want out of my business? What am I willing to do? Because the fact of the matter is, you have to be willing, if you're going to remain an individual agent, you have to be willing to do some of the things that I'm going to outline for you today. And if you're unwilling to do them, you either need to get support like a lever, or you probably should join a team or get some type of administrative support. But at the end of the day, these things need to happen. I always say someone has to do the thing, right? You never get to avoid that. Someone always has to do the thing. The science of success, the systems to success aren't changing. You don't get to change that just because you don't like it. As I tell my team often, we can avoid reality. We just can't avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. So what I'm going to walk you through are the systems that need to happen in order to build a scalable, sustainable business. And if you don't do those things, just don't be surprised when the results show up. So at the end of the day, you have to make a decision about what are you willing to do and what are you not willing to do. It's okay. So I think so many agents get in their heads about, oh, I don't want to say I don't want to do this. No, say you don't want to do it so that we can help you solve the problem. Say, I don't want to do this part of the business. By the way, the one part you can't say I don't want to do is lead generating. If you don't want to do that, you're just in the wrong business. Is that fair to say? Like if you don't want to do that anymore, you can make that job easier. But if you don't want to do that anymore, you're probably just in the wrong place. All right, so let's talk through some of the cons of being a solo agent. First and foremost is scalability, right? In order to understand the pros, in order to help you all understand how you can pivot and the advantages that you have as an individual agent, we have to go through the cons first. And this is really important to wrap your arms around so that you know what some of the challenges may be as you hit them, right? First is scalability. Obviously, as an individual agent, you are going to hit a scalability challenge at a certain point. You are not going to be able to do any more transactions. And so what that means is that every stage of that, you may have to modify your business a little bit, or you just make a decision about what types of transactions or how many you are willing to do. By the way, that doesn't mean that you can't say, I want to do less transactions at a higher price point and make the same amount of money that I'm making today. That's totally okay. But at some point, an individual agent will reach a critical maximum wherein they are not able to do any more transactions running the same playbook that they're at. The next is constant availability. One of the biggest challenges of being an individual agent is that there's nobody else to pass these things off to, right? You don't have anybody else to pass the phone calls off to. So yes, even if you're on the vacation or even if you're doing something else, you are the person that everybody calls. You are the product. And by the way, again, nothing wrong with that, but you need to walk into it clear-headed. Because if you get frustrated that you're having to be constantly available, or that you're having to continuously manage the business, or that you're constantly the center of the business, well, then again, I go back to the first slide, which is what type of business are you willing to build or not willing to build, right? This is part of being a solo agent. You are going to be constantly available. This is not to say that you should not build boundaries in your business. You should absolutely do that. None of you should be answering the phone at 11 o'clock at night. None of you should be getting up at 3 a.m. to have phone calls with your people. And yet you are going to be the person that they always call. Okay. Loneliness. I say often one of the greatest advantages that I think real estate agents get when they come into our ecosystem is, aside from the real advantages of all the support, one of the biggest things is that we remedy some of this loneliness that you experience as an individual agent. I don't know about all of you, but I had a lot of challenges with this when I was an individual agent, especially in this world now that we're in, where it's very virtual, right? Where I'm not interacting with other individual agents on a daily basis. I didn't really have anybody to think with. I didn't really have anybody to cry in my beer with on the days that were hard. I didn't have anybody to celebrate with on the days that were really good. And so there was sort of just this constant sense of loneliness that I experienced. And I didn't really have the camaraderie of having a team around me, right? Which, by the way, if we're going to talk about some solutions for this later, but this is a really important call out, because if you're starting to feel this way, a lot of times when we're in this isolation, we feel like there's something wrong with us, or this is something unique to us, or other people don't experience that. They do. They absolutely do. Another one is financial responsibility. You are financially responsible for this business. You're financially responsible. Again, there's always a positive, there's always a negative, there's always two sides to the coin. So the upside to this is that you get to keep all of the profits that you create from the business. The downside to this is that you're also responsible for all of the overhead, right? So this is a challenge for individual agents because they are consistently in front of the checkbook, so to speak, by themselves. They tend to be a little bit more wary of getting the leverage or support that they need, right? And so often a lot of individual agents will hire out of complete pain, which isn't the smartest investment that they can make. And they're not able to actually hold their money responsible for what it does. The next is lack of speciality, right? What this basically means is that you have to be good at all the things, and almost nobody is, right? And the challenge here is that you as an individual agent, much like anybody in any business, you are probably pretty good at a couple of different things. You are probably really good at a couple of different things. And so what you have to understand, and the challenge I see for so many people, is that they end up spending the vast majority of their time on the things that they aren't good at or don't understand as well, because it doesn't come to them as naturally. And they end up not spending as much of the time on things that actually make them money that they tend to be really good at. Right? So you just have to be aware that because you have a lack of speciality, you will probably always feel a little bit imbalanced in your business. There will always feel like things that you just don't understand as well. That's okay. You need to be really good at the money-making activities, the business-generating activities. And it's okay if you're not as good at everything else. By the way, make no mistake, it's going to creep up in places in your business. You just have to walk into that with a clear head. And then, of course, last but not least is leverage, right? As we go through this, I'm going to walk you through some creative ways that you can leverage if you don't have leverage around you that you can think about. And I'm also going to tell you what not to leverage. One of the worst mistakes that I see individual agents make in their growth is that they leverage the wrong things. Okay. So it's really important that you are leveraging the right things and that you're leveraging in the right time. Now, let's talk about the pros of being a solo agent. Number one is agility and nimbleness. The beautiful thing about being a solo agent is that you can be very agile and very nimble. This is really important. If you watch when there are significant market changes, which by the way, we've been through multiple times, teams tend to grow really quickly during up markets. They tend to implode very quickly during down markets because they've got a lot more overhead. They've got a lot more people to wrangle. They've got a lot more complexity. Whereas you can watch individual agents cut costs faster, grow faster because they don't have to get as many people on board. And you can watch them pivot their business much faster. There is a huge advantage to being very agile and very nimble. Now, it's got its downside too. Again, there's always a flip side to the coin, but this is really important in business. And I'll tell all of you that the difference here is the difference between trying to turn the Titanic versus trying to turn a speedboat. It's much easier for individual agents to implement, to shift, to change, to redirect, whatever it might be, right? Whatever you have to do, you're much more agile and much more nimble. And that's very helpful in business. I tell people often, one of my greatest assets, like one of the greatest things that I've done in my business life is that I'm just really fast. I'm really fast to implementation. There's not a whole lot of time between my decision to do a thing and doing the thing. And as an individual agent, that can absolutely be a competitive advantage. I'm going to talk about when it's not a competitive advantage in a couple of minutes. Second is brand continuity, right? Because it's always you, you're not going to have a whole lot of mix up on who is the branding here, right? You always know how you show up. You get to control that. That's a beautiful thing. So you don't have some agent who loses their mind one day out there doing something crazy with your brand or under your name. You get to maintain brand continuity because it is always you. That is an absolute strength in business. Next is price point and profitability. You have the ability as an individual agent to be much more selective about the business that you take because teams have to take the business in order to be able to remain afloat. As an individual agent, you have the privilege, if you are lead generating enough, to say no to business that's below a price point that you want to operate in. You also will tend to be much more profitable than a team will be. I see team profit levels well below double-digit percentage most of the time. And I see individual agent profitability in the high to mid to high double-digit percentage profitability. That's a huge swing, right? So in other words, you have to do less to make more, is what that means. Next is customer service. This sort of goes on along the same thread as brand continuity, right? Which means that because it's you managing and controlling the transaction, you have the ability to be consistent in your customer service. In other words, you don't have to tell anyone how you want the customer to be treated. You don't have to tell anyone how you want the system of transaction to go. I would suggest that you systematize that out so that if you ever do choose to grow, it's pretty easy to hand it off. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make because they're building out teams, but you get to control this. You also have a lot of optionality. In other words, you get to decide how you're going to build your business. That can also be a downside, right? Again, every strength has its weakness and vice versa. But this is a beautiful strength in business. Optionality allows you to choose how you want to grow the business. Because you have less overhead and because you are responsible for less people, you therefore have more options. In other words, what that means is that you have the ability to choose how you want to grow the business, how you want to behave in the business. You're not trying to keep in alignment with some other brand. You get to choose how this is going to look, and that is a real asset. Now, the downside to this is that I always say, I'm sure you'll have heard the phrase in real estate, like that person comes from scarcity, or that person is operating in scarcity. And that's like a reason that they're not getting to where they want to go. I would offer to all of you that most people don't suffer from scarcity. Most people actually suffer from abundance. In other words, there's so many options. There's so many things we could do. There's so many ways to build the business that we end up never actually going all in on any of them. And so we never actually make any traction or become successful in any of them. That is the challenge for most individual agents. Rather, I should say that's a challenge for most people in the world. But that's one of the biggest challenges that I see in real estate is that somebody never really goes all in on how they are going to build their business. And that's the only way to do it. And last but not least is independence, right? You don't got anybody telling you what to do. Again, there's a downside to that because you probably don't have anybody holding you accountable, which is really important in business. I always laugh when people say they got into real estate to work for themselves. I don't know about all of you, but I've been an entrepreneur for a long time and I've never worked for myself. I've worked for my customers, which have ranged and still range from the consumer to agents, to my team. Like I've never worked for myself. I always work for other people. So if you're working for yourself, it's probably another conversation that you need to have, but I've never worked for myself. I've always worked for the people that I serve. And yes, there is an element of independence that's beautiful in building your business. You get the flexibility to do that. You get to build business on your terms. You just need to make sure that you define those terms, because if you don't, then you will continue to look for freedom. And the downside to freedom, and by the way, there is a real downside, is that there is no ceiling, but there's also no floor, right? You can really put yourself in a business place or an income place wherein you are not where you want to be, and you also have limitless potential, right? All right, so let's get into some tactical stuff. And again, I promised all of you that one of the most important things that you can understand as any type of agent, and Kevin's like, I hate this because I want you to get into how you're going to actually solve these things. You're welcome, Kevin. Here you go. So let's get into some of the worst practices. So the importance of covering this is that you all need to take a look in the mirror, have some accountability conversations with yourself. I would challenge for some additional accountability that you throw it in the chat when you see yourself in any of the things that I'm about to outline, because the opposite side of what to do is what not to do. And I would offer that as a coach, I often spend a lot of time helping people uncover what they are doing that is a surefire way to fail. Because a lot of people get stuck in committing to a way that they're going to succeed. And so what I'll often do is say, all right, tell me all the ways that you could fail. And what happens is we'll often identify multiple ways that they have identified they could fail that they're actively doing in their business. So this is to put up a little bit of a mirror for you, such that if you see yourself doing any of these things, or these are reflective of anything you're doing in your business, you need to stop that immediately. Okay. So let's go through some of the worst practices for a solo agent. Number one is shiny object syndrome. Number one is shiny object syndrome. I'm going to try this and try that and try this and try this. And I never actually commit to any type of system in any category such that I've given it long enough in order for it to work. Here's how my conversation about lead generation goes with most agents. I'll say, tell me how you're lead generating. And they're like, well, I've tried this and I'm thinking about doing this. And I talked to another agent who's having a lot of success with this. And I've done some research on this. And I'll listen patiently for a while. And when they get to the end, I'm like, okay, you finished? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so you are not lead generating. You are literally not lead generating. Lead generation looks like this. I make X many contacts through this line of lead generation every single day. That is consistent lead generation. If you are thinking about it, pontificating about it, researching it, taking classes on it, that's movement. That's not action. Okay. That is research. That's not implementation. And I hate to be the one to break it to you, but that's not going to get you anywhere. Okay. So you are not going to be able to get to where you want to go by research alone. At some point, you are going to have to do something about it. And you are going to have to do it imperfectly. And you're going to have to do it messily. And you are going to have to do it without knowing the outcome. And it doesn't matter. You will have to commit to how you are going to lead generate for consistently for long enough in order for it to work. And let me tell you that 30 days or 15 minutes or 45 days or even 3 months is not long enough for you to know whether it's going to work or not. So stop ping-ponging around your business, trying a bunch of different things that you don't even know whether they work or not because you haven't given them long enough. My suggestion is that you do not allow yourself any new system until you have fully implemented one, and no more than one new thing a quarter. No more than one new thing a quarter. You're not switching CRMs. You're not getting a new coach. You are not picking a new form of lead generation. No more than one new thing a quarter, because most agents just try to change a bunch of things at once. And then they don't even know what's working or not working because they, number one, haven't given anything long enough. And number two, they can't even isolate what's working or not working in their business. Number two, no accountability. Remember I said there's a downside to working for yourself. I don't know about all of you, but I'm a bad boss to myself. I'm just a bad boss to myself, because on the days that I'm really tired, I'm going to be like, yeah, you work so hard, Nikki. You don't have to do anything today. I don't need to do this. Or this is really challenging, or this is really this, or this is whatever. And I'm going to not push myself the way that I need to. It's really easy to believe your own excuses. And I always say, the challenge, it's easy to lie to yourself, but it's a problem when you start believing it. And without accountability, we will believe it. Yeah, some of you are like, this describes my weight loss journey as well. For sure, you need to have accountability partners, because it is easy to give ourselves a break. It's easy to lie to ourselves, and it's easy to believe it. So you need to have a coach or an accountability partner who holds up a mirror and says, hey, could you have still done this? Could you have still done this thing? Are you falling into bad habits? Are you doing things that don't make sense, right? Are you doing things that are not going to get you to where you want to go? Next is unrealistic plans. Y'all, stop that. You have to create a realistic plan that gets you to where you want to go. One of the most common things that I see is that real estate agents build these plans that are nonsensical to the goals that they want to have. So the first thing you need to figure out is, what do you want to do, right? In other words, how many transactions do you want to close? Because without that, how do you know what to do? The answer is you don't. So you don't know whether you're on track or off track. You don't know whether you should stop or whether you should keep going. And so you are driven into chaos and madness, or worse, into failure by the oblivion of directionlessness. You have to make a decision about what it is that you want to build, and then you can make all the other decisions, which is how you're going to get there, right? And then you have to make an actual realistic plan. Here's one of the best examples I see in real estate of an unrealistic plan. I see this all the time. An agent will come to me and they'll say some version of, I actually stopped teaching business planning outside our ecosystem because I got so tired of this. I would spend a couple days doing this magnificent business plan with agents. And by the end of those couple days, an agent would every time invariably run up to me in the hall and be like, Nikki, this was the best training I've ever been to. It's been amazing. Thank you so much. This year, based off everything we talked about, I'm going to double my business. And I'm like, that's amazing. What are you going to do differently from what you did last year? And they'd be like, well, I'm actually going to implement the plan I had last year. I'm actually going to lead generate this year. I'm actually going to honor my calendar blocks this year. And by the way, all of that comes back to you're literally not doing anything different. So in other words, they're trying to double their business with the exact same plan that they had before. And y'all want to guess how often that works out? Answer's never. It never does. So if you are going to make a change in your business, you have to ensure that it's a change that's actually going to get you to where you want to go. And you have to ensure that you also have a plan that's going to get you to where you want to go. Next is stagnation. It's easy as an individual agent when it's just you and you're by yourself to stop pushing yourself. And by the way, this is also where it's important to know what you want to build, because it's also easy on the other side to be really hard on yourself, right? To feel like you're behind or feel like you're not doing enough. This is the importance of knowing where you actually want to go. And the next is singular experience. I don't think enough people talk about this. In fact, some of you are sharing this in the chat, and this is the challenge of being a solo agent. I saw Deborah earlier say something to the effect of like, there's so many tools here at eXp that I'm overwhelmed. By the way, that's pretty common in the world of real estate. Again, there's so many ways that you could do a thing. And the only thing that you can rely on in order to understand what's best or which path to navigate is experience. But the challenge is, as a solo agent, you don't have that much of it. You are bound by only your experience, and that can be a real challenge, right? So what that means is that if you are a solo agent and you are only bound by your experience, you need to go out and identify how you want to build your business, and then congregate with people who have a lot of experience in those different types of business practices, right? Okay, so let's get to some best practices. Number one, you need to know your numbers. You need to know your numbers. Listen, y'all, every form of success has a number attached to it. Every form of success has a number attached to it. Okay. So what that means is that if you are lead generating consistently enough, eventually you will know how many people you need to talk to, how many people you need to get into contact with in order to get an appointment, how many appointments you need to have in order to get a signed agreement, how many signed agreements you need to have in order to get X many under contract, and how many under contracts you need in order to get X many closed. Okay. Those are all numbers you need to know. You also need to know your financial numbers. Individual agents, especially, because I presume you don't have an endless pocketbook to pull from. Individual agents have to hold their money accountable. You have to ensure that the things that you are investing in, including people, including systems, including services, whatever it may be, are actually giving you a return on investment. You have to know your numbers. Second, you need to choose your lead generation levers. Okay. You need to choose your lead generation levers. Let me remind you all that I'm thinking about, or I'm researching, or I'm learning about, or I'm taking a class on. None of those are lead generation. I make X many contacts through this avenue every single day. Right? We inside Lever, one of the first things that I do with our agents is I do a lead generation plan. In other words, how are you going to talk to people about real estate enough times in order for you to hit the goal that you have? I don't care what awful thing somebody out there is selling you that says you don't have to lead generate in order to hit your goals. They are lying to you. Let me be the first to tell you that if anybody tries to sell you this thing where you get to sit on your couch and eat your bonbons and you don't lead generate and they're going to blow through your front door with a consumer who wants to work with you, they are lying. Stop paying for those things. You have to lead generate. That's the job. You are never getting away from it. And the irony of this is that this is one of the first things that I watch agents give away in their business. And it is the number one mistake that I see people make. They try to hire in a VA that's going to make calls to their database. You know who your database doesn't want to hear from? Anybody other than you. They want to talk to you. You are the product. You are the relationship builder. They want to talk to you. Hand away everything else before you hand away that. That should be the very last thing that you ever hand off in your business. So in case somebody is trying to sell you something different, that's not real. I've never seen that be successful in real estate ever. You always have to lead generate. This is always, always, always going to be a relationship business. always. Your job is to get into more relationships with more people every single day. That's your job as a real estate agent. And any type of leverage should be in service of you doing more of that. Okay. Next is you got to find your tribe. You guys have an amazing one here at EXP, but this is also a really big tribe. So my bet is you need to probably find a smaller tribe that you can really interconnect with, that you can really learn from. In other words, are there other people who are trying to build like you build? Are there other people who you want to learn from? Are there other people who've had success in the same type of avenue or in your market or in an adjacent market or whatever that looks like that you can learn from and mastermind with? You need to find your tribe. Remember, we talked about before, this can be a really lonely business for individual agents. So you have to go out and make sure you have people around you who are motivating you, who are encouraging you, who you can learn from, who you can bring value to, and who are going to keep you from stagnating. Next is creative leverage. One of the top things that I hear from individual agents who want to build it themselves is they're like, well, I don't have money for leverage, or I don't want to hire anybody yet, but I need leverage. So therefore I can't get it. Make no mistake, there are a ton of creative ways as an individual agent that you can get leverage. By the way, if I'm giving you business, I never give people business out of the kindness of my heart. We are in a business relationship. In other words, if I'm referring people to you, you better be providing value back to me. Let me walk you through what that means. As a solo agent, everybody that I referred business to was responsible for also referring business to me, or they were replaced. And this was a conversation that I had with them at the very beginning. You want to be my termite inspector? Awesome. I expect this many referrals from you a year. And if I don't get them, I'm going to give my business to another termite inspector. And some of you listening to this are like, yes, I would never do that. Why wouldn't you do that? You are building their business. Why wouldn't you expect them to build yours? Why? Because you were never taught that? Because somebody told you weren't allowed to? I don't know about all of you, but when I refer something to somebody, I expect that they're also going to refer back. If you're my lender and I'm referring you business, yep, I expect that you're going to refer me business. If you are my home inspector, not only do I expect that you're going to refer me business, I also expect that you are going to be the one who walks my clients through the home inspection, answers any questions, and explains everything they need. You're the expert, by the way. So you have leverage, learn to use it. Okay. So go to your people that you are helping build their business and figure out the leverage that they could give you in yours. Last but not least, get a coach. Get yourself a coach, a good one that is going to tell you the truth, one that is not just coaching you because they didn't make it in their own real estate business, somebody who is actually going to give you the support, the encouragement, and the push that you need in order to get to where you want to go. And let me give you a little secret on coaching. There are a lot of coaches out there who choose to coach because they did not do. I said what I said. I said what I said. I know it's not popular, but there are a lot of people out there who coach because they weren't able to do. So you should go find yourself a coach who is living the life and building the business that you want to build, that you aspire to do. I always tell the story when I talk about coaching. One of my top agents came to me and said, Nikki, I've been stuck at 30 million for like 4 years, and I cannot understand why. I have a great coach. I've been working so hard. I've been implementing everything, and I can't figure out why I'm still stuck here. And I said, well, how much real estate has your coach sold? And they said, I actually don't know. I'll go back and find out. Y'all want to guess what the number was? It was 30 million. That coach only knew how to get them to 30 million. It is hard to teach people to do what you have not done before. So you need to find a coach that has actually gotten to where you want to go and that you can learn from and implement. Last but not least, one more. You got to have a plan. You got to have a real plan. What are you going to do every day? The number one mistake most individual agents make is that they walk into a day without a plan. You shouldn't be walking into a week, a month, a day without a plan. What are you going to do today that's going to drive results in your business? That should not be a question that you have in the morning. That should be an answer that you have in the morning. What are you going to do today that drives results in your business? You have to walk into the day with a plan. Okay. All right. Before I get into Q&A, scan this for some free stuff. One of the top things that I get asked in this is, Nikki, how, like you talked about lead generation, how important it is. What are the ways that I can lead generate? Scan this. We have 100 ways that you can lead generate, a little document that we give to everybody who's part of Lever. My free gift for all of you today. Feel free to scan this and enter in your info, and we'll make sure that we get it to you. And I can drop the link in the chat for everybody as well. But scan this now, because I'm going to move on to the next page and get to some questions. All right, hopefully everybody's good. All right, let's talk some questions. By the way, if you want to follow us, follow me, tag us with your ahas. I love hearing when y'all take things away and implement. Remember, you promised me at least one thing that you were going to implement from today. I'd love to hear what that is. But let's jump into some questions. Y'all start dropping them in the chat. What questions do you have for me? By the way, was today helpful? Y'all learned something today? Are you going to go and implement something from today? Drop in the chat what it is that you're going to implement. Here's a QR code again for those of you asking. Antoinette said, my coach rarely reaches out or responds. MIA, get a new coach. That's my answer to you. You just need to get a new coach. It's not the right coach for you. By the way, it also, I would say, like, your coach should not be there for day-to-day needs. Like, your coach should help you build the plan. Your job is to implement the plan. And then you shouldn't need them all that much in between. Like, I always laugh when people do weekly coachings. For me, at least, that's too much. Like, that hasn't even been enough time for me to do anything or create any results. In our ecosystem, I don't coach anybody more often than every 2 weeks, like anybody, because it's just not enough time to make any progress. Brian said, I'm going to be making a daily plan and not making hasty changes. I love that. Like, make the plan, stick to the plan. Make the plan, stick to the plan consistently. No more shiny objects, for sure. You help me solidify why I enjoy being a solo agent. Love that. Lots of takeaways, set up accountability, and don't believe my own excuses, for sure. By the way, if y'all want to connect with us, you can learn more. We've got at lever.movoto.com/exp. I'm going to stay on for a bit so I can make sure I answer your guys' questions. But feel free to email me, Nikki at leverbymovoto.com. Plan to make 580 dials a month. Martell, I would offer that you should change that from X many contacts. Intent matters, but results matter more. Your intent through making calls is to talk to people. But the way that you've set that goal, if you make 580 dials and don't talk to a soul, you've hit your goal. That's the wrong goal. You want to have a goal about how many people you talk to about real estate. Dials is never the goal. Contacts is the goal. Always contacts. Daily plan and knowing my numbers. For sure. All right, guys, if you have questions, drop them in again. If I haven't answered your question, drop it in again. I try to get them all. I need to be more consistent with lead gen. Is it as simple as building a day plan? Yeah, Mike, it really is. It's really as simple as building a daily plan. And here's my suggestion to all of you. Every single one of you should walk into your day with your daily plan. So it should not be a question mark about who you're going to talk to today. The way you consistently hit your lead generation is saying, this is who I'm talking today. This is what I'm going to say. This is how many people, etc. So that should not be answered day of. You need to build that plan the night before or the week before, and you should start your day knowing exactly who you're going to talk to and what you're going to say. Implement faster, but more intentionally, no shiny objects. Stop with paralysis by analysis. Yeah, for sure, Rolando. I see a lot of people make that mistake too, right? Like they get ready to 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 get ready. And what you are trying to do is to actually build a system and build a implementation towards what you want to get to, right? So you shouldn't be changing it every day, but you should have a plan that you are systematically following. Is there a software for lead generation that you might recommend? Yes, your iPhone. That is the one that I recommend. Use that one to its maximum ability and then pick a new one. How do I lead generate in a city that has at least 4+ different languages? Pick the language that you speak and lead generate in that. What systems would you recommend for a solo agent to start with in the beginning? The first system that you need to identify and build is your lead generation system. That's the first one. Until you have built that, you should not be building anything else. Okay. So the first system is a lead generation system. The second system is the follow up system. The third system is usually going to be the accountability system, i.e., you're tracking both of those things, and you should be building some accountability around your numbers, around your financials, and around your lead generation numbers. And then the next would probably be transaction systems and so on and so forth, right? But until you've built the lead generation system, literally nothing else matters. All right, y'all. Was there any of your questions that I missed? Did I get them all? All right, y'all made me a promise. You made me a promise that you were going to go and implement one thing from today. Keep dropping it in the chat. Can you tell us more about the lead gen systems you're using that work best? Yeah, it's whichever one that you will do consistently. Pick how you're going to lead generate consistently and go do that often. That's probably a whole nother class, but download the link that I gave to all of you, the QR code, for a bunch of ideas. Pick 2 to 3 at most and consistently do them. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you'll take your one thing and go and implement it successfully. I hope you'll tell me your story. I hope you'll come back and tell me how successful you are. And I look forward to getting to see all of you, interact with all of you very soon. But go out there and crush it, y'all. Go kill it as a solo agent.